Alright guys, it's Tuesday and we're getting ready for our review today. We're going to have a test tomorrow and our main topics are going to be ratios, proportions, and similar figures. So I'm going to work out all the questions from the review. I will at least get them set up and get you started on each question. Some of them I will do completely so you can check to make sure you got the right answer. And then you'll be ready for the test on Wednesday. Question number 1 says, a recipe calls for 2 cups of flour for every 3 eggs. So the first thing we want to do is fill in those blanks at the top. What is the ratio comparing? The two quantities that we're comparing are flour with eggs. So now we want to fill in these 2 blanks that show us what are we comparing in the ratio. And we are comparing 2 cups of flour and 3 eggs. Okay, so in the table, they've already got it set up for us. Blank cups of flour, I'm going to fill in a 2. And blank eggs, I'm going to fill in a 3. This is our basic ratio that we're starting with. And we're going to match it up with each one of these blank spaces to the right. So I have 4 blank spaces. I'm going to have 4 separate questions that I'm going to set up. The first question I'm going to set up is going to be 2 on top, 3 on bottom. And then I'm going to do this first box right here that's next to it. I have 7 on top and a question mark, a blank space underneath. Every time we set up one of these ratios, the way we're going to solve it is cross multiply and divide. So the 2 numbers I can cross multiply are 3 and 7. If I do 3 times 7, that is 21. As soon as we get through multiplying, we're going to put that number inside the box. And we're going to divide by the other number that's up there that we haven't used yet, which is a 2. 2 can go into 2 one time. If I subtract, I get no leftovers. Bring down my next digit. 2 can go into 1 0 times. If I subtract, I still have a 1. So I'm going to put a decimal in my number, put another 0. I'm going to bring it down. Now before I say how many times 2 can go into 10, I'm going to move this decimal up into my answer so I don't forget it later. Now how many times can 2 go into 10? 5 times. 10 minus 10 is 0. So now I know that the missing number of eggs is 10.5. Okay, so that's how we're going to do each one of these other 3 missing spaces. I'm always going to start back with the beginning ratio, which was 2 on top for flour, 3 on bottom for eggs. Now I'm going to match it up with this next empty space. I don't know how many cups of flour I'm going to use, but I'm going to use 21 eggs. Now on this one, some people can see a relationship going sideways between my eggs. I can turn 3 into 21. How can you make a 3 into a 21? Multiply by 7. If I increase my eggs 7 times, I should also increase my cups of flour 7 times. So I could just do 2 times 7. That's a little bit easier. 2 times 7 is 14. So my missing number is 14. I need 14 cups of flour for 21 eggs. Okay? Then gonna start over with my beginning ratio one more time. 2 on top for my cups of flour, 3 on bottom for my eggs. The next 2 spaces I have a missing number of cups of flour on top. I have 1 egg on bottom. Okay, so some people may think about turning a 3 into a 1. If that's not what you want to do, you can always cross multiply and divide. If I cross multiply, I'm going to do 2 times 1. That's 2. I'm going to put the 2 inside the box. The other number I haven't used yet is 3. It's going to go outside the box. 2 cannot be divided by 3. Okay, so I still have 2 left. I can't just say it's 0. I need to put a decimal in my problem, put another 0, drop down the 0. Before I say how many times can 3 divide into 20, I want to move that decimal up into my answer, and now think about 6 times what is close to 20. That should be a 6. 3 times 6 is 18. 20 minus 18 is 2. If I put another 0 in my problem and drop it down, I have 20 again. So 3 can go into 20 another 6 times. Looks like this is going to keep repeating. So for this one, I'm going to put a repeating bar above the 6's, and then I'm going to say for 1 egg, I need 0.6 with a line above it cups of flour. I need 0.6 cups of flour. Okay, I have one last blank space right at the end. So I'm going to again start over with my beginning ratio. 2 on top for cups of flour, 3 on bottom for eggs. My last box says I need a 1 on top and a question mark on bottom. So again, some people might try to think, well, how can I make a 2 into a 1? That's totally fine. I'm going to stick with my cross multiply and divide because it works every time no matter what. 3 times 1 is 3. I'm going to put a 3 inside the box. The other number I haven't used yet is a 2. So now I'm going to divide 2 into 3. 2 can go into 3 one time. I've got 1 left over. If you want to just take your leftovers, move them up on top, I've got 1 left over and I was dividing by 2. So my answer is 1.5. If you do not want to write your answer as a decimal, as a fraction, that's okay. You can make it a decimal. We know that half is the same as 0.5. So for 1 cup of flour, now I know that the answer is going to be 1.5 eggs. Or you can make the fraction 1 and 1/2. Okay, so that's question number 1. Okay, question number 2 at the bottom says, find the indicated length for each similar figure. Okay, I'm going to color code this shape like we did in class the other day. I have a bottom and a bottom. Then I have a side and a side. I'm going to put my 2 blue numbers together to make a ratio, 7.5 and X. I'm going to put my 2 green numbers together to make a ratio. But the number that I put on top was 7.5, so I need to also put that same shape's number on top, which was the 4. So 4 is going to go on top, 3.2 is going to go on bottom. Now I'm just going to set this up and solve it. Always you can cross multiply and divide, so I'm going to use that same strategy. If I cross multiply the 2 numbers that I know, 7.5 times 3.2. 7.5 times 3.2. Gonna work that out. When I get ready to start multiplying by this next 3, I'm going to put a placeholder 0. Scoot over 1 place value position. Then start recording your answer to 3 times 5. When you add these all together, it looks like I have 2,400. But that is not the correct answer because I am missing my decimal. If you look back in the problem, how many digits are behind the decimal? I have 2 total digits behind the decimal. So in my answer, I also want 2 digits behind the decimal. So really, my number is just 24. As soon as you get through multiplying, you're going to put that number inside the box. I'm going to divide by the other number that was in the problem, which was a 4. 4 can divide into 24 perfectly 6 times. I have no leftovers, so the missing length is 6 inches. So the value of x, 6 inches. And that would be your answer to number 2. Question 3 is also talking about similar figures. It looks like there's 2 triangles and their points are touching each other. I am going to also color code this shape. It says A to B is parallel with D to E. Okay, so A to B is 20. That's in the same spot as D to E. So I'm going to make those the same color. They're going to go together as a ratio. I'm going to put 20 on top, 12 on bottom. Then the rest of the sentence says B to C is 15. How much would be D to C? So color coding B to C is 15. I'm going to put that number on top. Then D to C is also going to be green for me. That number or that side is missing. I need to find it. So I'm going to leave the bottom part blank on this ratio. Again, you can always cross multiply and divide, so that's the thing I'm going to do. 12 times 15. Let's work that out just to make sure. Again, before I start multiplying with the 1, I'm going to put a placeholder 0 and scoot over one spot, then start recording 1 times 2. When you get through multiplying, you should have 180. As soon as you get through multiplying, you're going to put that number inside the box. Divide by the other number we haven't used yet, which is a 20. 20 can go into 180 9 times perfectly. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times 0 is 0. So 9 times 20 is 180. So the missing side is 9 inches, and that looks like it is there in my multiple choice answers. It is a letter B, 9 inches. Question number 4. This sort of looks like number 1 that we did, except we just don't have that perfect table for us. It says find the unit rates for this cereal. They've already started setting the problem up for us. If we turn this into a table that looks just like question 1, I'm going to find out those 2 question mark spaces. Okay, so I'm going to start with my original ratio, which is 12 ounces compared with $3. I'm going to put 12 on top. I'm going to put 3.00 on bottom. It right now is going to be paired up with 1 ounce on top and question mark for the dollars on bottom. So I'm going to put a 1 on top and a question mark on bottom. Again, our main way to solve these problems is cross multiply and divide. If I cross multiply the 2 numbers I do know, $3 times 1 is $3. As soon as you get through multiplying, you're going to put that number inside the box. I'm going to divide by the other number I haven't used yet, which is a 12. 12 cannot divide into 3. I'm going to move my decimal up into my answer. 12 can go into 30 2 times. 2 times 12 is 24. I have 6 left over. Drop down the next digit. 12 times 5 is perfectly 60. So I have no leftovers. So now I know that 1 ounce of cereal would be 25 cents. So that first question mark, I'm going to put $0.25. Okay, I'm going to start back with my original ratio so I can find the answer at the end. 12 on top, 3.00 on bottom. And the last ratio I need to pair it up with has a question mark on top for the number of ounces, but $1 on bottom. So question mark on top, $1 on bottom. Now this one should be really easy to do. How can you turn a $3 into $1? It got smaller, so it's going to be divide. $3 divided by 3 is $1. If I'm going to divide by 3 on the bottom, I have to divide by 3 on the top. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So for this, for my answer, I would get 4 ounces of cereal cost $1. Question number 5. This looks like what we just did in class yesterday. If you take a look at the directions at the very top, it says complete the graph, table, equation, and written description to represent the proportional relationship between the length of an object in feet and the length of the object in yards. Okay? So we need to think in our brains, what do we know when we compare feet and yards? How many feet are in 1 yard? If you think about this or look on your math chart that I gave you in class on Monday, we said that 3 feet equal 1 yard. Okay? If I look in my table, look in the first column where it says feet, I have a 3 in that column. And then the last column where the yards is at, that's where I'm going to put my answer. 3 feet is only 1 yard. So how do you turn 3 into 1? If it gets smaller, you have to divide. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So in every one of these process boxes, I'm going to say divide by 3. Alright, final page, guys. On the very back, we have 2 story problems. We want to set these 2 story problems up as ratios and cross multiply and divide to find the missing part. So this says Sylvia cut a rectangular board to place behind a picture. The dimensions of the board are 5 inches for the length, 7 inches for the width. It is a really good idea to draw a picture when they tell you the shape of something. So, if I have a rectangle, it said the length is 5 and the width is 7. I'm going to label those. Width is 7, length is 5. Okay, then it says Sylvia wants to cut another rectangular board that's similar to the first board she cut. If the length of the second board is 17.5 inches, so this board is a lot longer. The length is 17.5 inches. What is the width? This one is the part we don't know. Okay, so I am going to put 2 ratios together. I'm going to do the length with the length and the width with the width. So on top, I'm going to put 5 for my length. My other length is 17.5, so those are going to go together. 17.5 is another length. Then I'm going to put together my 2 widths. The first width that matches up with 5 is 7. And then the other width we do not know. So to solve this, I'm going to cross multiply and divide. If I cross multiply the 2 numbers that I do know, 17.5 times 7. 17.5 times 7, I'm going to work that out. So my final answer is not 1,225 because I'm missing my decimal point. if you look at the number, you should only see one digit behind the decimal. So really, it's 122.5. As soon as I get through multiplying, I'm going to put that number inside the box. I'm going to divide by the other number I haven't used yet, which if you look up here is the 5. I'm going to work this out. 5 goes into 12 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10. Have 2 left over. Bring down my next digit. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract. Bring down my next digit. Now before I put my answer up, I have come across the decimal point. So I'm going to move it up in my answer. 5 times 5 is exactly 25. So now I have nothing left. So the other width that I did not know is 24.5 inches. 24.5 inches. That is my missing width for the other rectangular piece that she wants to cut. Final question. Gilbert is drawing a house plan. He uses the scale 0.5 inches on the house plan represents 2 feet in the actual house. So I'm going to stop with the first sentence. I'm going to use those 2 pieces of information to make a ratio. So 0.5 inches, I'm going to put that on top. 0.5 inches. The other number I know in that is 2 feet. So I'm going to put 2 feet on bottom. If I read the rest of the sentence, it's either going to tell me the inches or the feet. Before I actually get there, I know that I'm going to be putting inches on top because that's what I did in the first ratio, and feet on bottom because, again, that's what I did in the first ratio. When I keep reading this sentence, it says, what is the actual length of the wall if the length of the wall on the house plan is 9 inches? So where do you think 9 is going to go? Hopefully you said on top. So again, my strategy for solving all of these problems, cross, multiply, and divide. 9 times 2 is 18. As soon as you get through multiplying, you want to put that number in the box. Divide by the other number we haven't used yet, this time 0.5. Again, we do not want to divide by a decimal, so I'm going to move it 1 time so that 0.5 just turns into 5. If I move the decimal place on the outside number, I also have to move the decimal on the inside number. But right now, I don't see one on 18. So to make it have a decimal, I'm going to make it say 18.0. That still means 18. I'm going to now move the decimal 1 spot like I did before. Then I'm going to move it straight up into my answer. So really, I'm dividing 5 into 180. 5 can go into 18 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. You subtract, you get 3 leftovers. Bring the 0 down. 5 times 6 is 30. That matches perfectly. So now I know that the missing number of feet, the actual wall in the house would be 36 feet long. Okay, hopefully you got several of these questions right, and the ones you didn't know after watching the video, you now hopefully can understand how to do them. We always can cross, multiply, and divide to find the answers. Make sure you get a good night's rest. I'll see you tomorrow, and good luck on your test.